Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to talk about planting herbs in containers, and I think containers are such a great way to get started, especially if you're a beginner gardener. So I want to go through the basics of planting herbs in containers. Before I get into the points that I want to talk about, I just want to share some of the benefits that I feel containers bring. First off, all of your plants are contained. So instead of starting out by planting stuff in a big overwhelming spot in your garden, you have everything in one neat, tidy little package. You don't have weeds trying to compete with your herbs. If you have an insect problem, if that occurs, they're easy to manage because they are contained in this small space. You can also move your container to the perfect area that gets just the right amount of light, or you can put it near your water source or near your kitchen door maybe, where it makes harvesting really easy and quick for you. So I just feel like there's so much convenience that comes from putting plants like that in containers. And then I think it's important for beginners to have that accomplishment and that success with something on a small scale to give you confidence to start gardening on a bigger scale. So the first couple of things that you want to make sure of is you want to pick a container that has good drainage. Now I already kind of got ahead of myself and filled it with soil, so I'm going to try to tip it. There is a drain hole right at the bottom of this container. I don't know if you can see that without me dumping the soil out. But that's super important for your plants to have that good drainage. And then you also want to use potting soil, not garden soil. So you can't go out into your garden and dig up soil and put it in your containers. It's way too heavy. It compacts and it's really bad for the roots of your plants. So you want to use a potting soil. I'm using the Espoma Organic potting mix. Also, feel like it's important to use an organic potting mix because one of the main reasons why I grow a lot of my food and my herbs is because I can make sure that I know what happens to that plant. I know what kind of feed it's getting. I know that what I'm using is organic, so I'm getting the healthiest thing possible out of my garden. So I've got my pot already full of soil. This is called the Wave Tall Egg Planter from Michael Carr Designs. We actually unboxed this earlier on, like maybe a month or two, I can't even remember, ago. So I was excited to put it to use. I think the herbs will look really pretty in here, and I think it's about a 14-inch diameter. When you're thinking about what herbs you want to put in your container, you want to consider how compatible they are with each other. So you want to take into account water requirements, light requirements, and also overall size. Because there are some kind of plants like mint that's pretty much all you want to plant in a container. Like this container right here, one 4-inch mint plant would fill that container and more in one season. Lemon balm is another one that likes a lot of space. And then when I say overall size, like look at the tag, see how big the plant gets. Like Amazel basil, for example, gets huge. I mean, if you guys have been watching our videos and saw how the Amazel basil performed in our garden space last year, I mean, those plants were massive, and so you would only need one for a pot this size. If you're wanting to do a mixed herb planter like I'm wanting to do today, you want to make sure you're choosing things that stay a little bit smaller. I've got a Greek oregano here. These are common chives, and then also an extra curled parsley. So none of these will want to get enormous or want to take over the container. So when I say water requirements, most of the time when I'm doing mixed containers like this, I have fairly good luck putting just whatever herbs I want together. Because the containers drain, they're way less likely to get bogged down by too much water. But there are a few herbs that like it a little bit on the drier side. So rosemary is one, lavender, thyme. Those are all ones that can dry out a bit in between, but I have had decent luck putting them with other things. So just be careful as you're planning. Look at the tags. A lot of times it will tell you water requirements or what it prefers on the back of the tag. Some of the things that like more consistent water are mint, basil, chives, parsley, things like that. And you will get to know, the more herbs you plant, you will get to know what that specific plant likes. And of course, every climate's a little bit different too. We're very dry here, and so really the only moisture it gets, the only significant moisture is from me, so I can kind of control what kind of water I'm giving them. And most herbs you'll find really do prefer a full sun spot. So that means 6 to 8+ hours of sun, which, like I said earlier, having them in a container, you can go find exactly what spot they will thrive in, and you can just set that pot there. There are some herbs that can handle a little bit more shade, so again, just consult the tag and just make sure the herbs you're putting up next to each other, especially if you're just starting out, have kind of the same requirements listed on the back of the tags. And the last thing, and this is totally unnecessary, but usually when I plant herb containers, I consider color and texture, because I know we're not dealing with blooms here, but if we can make a pretty arrangement by using different looking plants, like I am all for it. And there's so many gorgeous herbs out there, like tricolor sage or pineapple sage. There's chocolate mint that has a little bit more of a deep green. There's the parsley that's like much more bright. We've got grassy texture with the chives. Borage has beautiful blooms. So just consider that when you're looking at herbs, and just maybe even try out a new herb to you, just to make your trio or however many herbs you're planting in a container really contrast each other and shine. So right here, I think this is a really pleasing blend of herbs, and it is very early, so there's not much out. In fact, this chive right here, there was a flat of chives that was carried over winter down at the garden center, and this is one of them right here. So when I look at the root system, I'm going to have to do a little work on that. But I like the grassy texture with the really curly, fluffy texture of this parsley. And then the oregano brings a kind of more of that depth and the weight. It's a little bit more of a bold leaf and a darker green. So when I plant these, I was just talking about the root ball. Most of the time when you're getting herbs in season, they don't have a super extensive root system because usually they're fresh. But this one right here, oh, it smells yummy. I love chives. I'm just going to break up the root memory just a tiny bit. It does not take much. You don't have to really manhandle the root balls. And when you plant them in your container, you want to make sure to pack in your potting mix all the way around the root ball so that you eliminate any possible air pockets. And then we're going to go with the extra curled parsley on the back here. And we're just going to do the same exact thing. And this pot will look a little bit skimpy in the beginning, which is really not like my normal planting routine. Usually I pack things in, but again, you want to consider the size these plants get and give them room to flourish. Okay, and our last one is this oregano. This one has a little bit of an extensive root system. It looks healthy. Just going to break up the bottom there and pack soil around the root ball. Also, when you fill up your container with soil, I did not mention this before, make sure you leave a generous lip right here on the top. Usually like 1 or 2 inches is sufficient. That way when you water, water's not going over the sides of the containers. It gives it plenty large reservoir to give them a really good deep watering. Also, it's a good idea, especially if you're brand new to this, save the tags and tuck them in the container. Like on the back side of the container, you could even tuck them behind a plant so you can't see them. But that way, if you have any questions later on in the season, you have something to refer to. And the very last thing you need to consider is fertilizing, because when we have things in containers, what they get in terms of nutrients is given from us. Like I have complete control over what kind of nutrients this pot gets. Now this is brand new fresh potting soil, which does have nutrients in it. So you don't necessarily need to start fertilizing right away, but maybe in a couple weeks time, start in on a regular fertilizing schedule. For herbs, they don't need as much as your annual flowers do. So maybe every couple of weeks or every 3 weeks rather than every week. And I use the liquid grow fertilizer, and I do have a watering can. For demonstration purposes, even though I don't technically need to fertilize it today, I will show you how I do it. So I need to add 2 to 3 doses of this fertilizer to 1 gallon of water, which I already have my water in here. Usually I put my fertilizer in my watering can first, because then when I add my water, it mixes it for me. But I don't have live water in the greenhouse right now. So to do our dose, you just tip the bottle. Probably should shake it first. So we got 1 dose in there. 2, 3. And then I had a stick on the ground, and that's what I'm going to use to mix mine up. And then we'll just water these in. See how it's nice it is to have that lip? Like there's no fear of water going over the sides of the container and making a big mess. And that's pretty much it. I hope that this was helpful, just seeing the basics, especially for those of you who are beginners. The only other thing I can think to remind you is if you are planting in containers like this, you do need to make sure once it warms up that they get very consistent water. So like for me, that means when it's 100+ degrees in the summertime, I'm having to water containers this size every day. So you just need to be mindful of that based on your climate. Keep a close eye on your plants and then just enjoy them. I feel like starting on this scale is just such a great thing to do, because once you have success and get some experience under your belt, starting with just a few, like a handful of plants, it just boosts your confidence so much. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.